Commissioner Bennett, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
So before we start, I just wanted to make a little housekeeping announcement. To keep the board meeting room screen, by the way, good morning, everyone. This is Julie. To keep the board meeting room screen, Zoom screen less populated, once your action item is complete, if you could just hide your video, it would be greatly appreciated. And if your action item is not up for presentation, please leave your video off until it is. Does everybody get that?
Yes, we're about to start the meeting, Julie.
Okay, thank you.
No, thank you. Okay, Commissioner Bennett.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Okay, for those joining us by Zoom this morning or watching us via YouTube, let me first acknowledge all the PSTA board members who are with us this morning. I am Commissioner Pat Gerard, the chair of PSTA. Why don't we just go around and well, that's okay. I'll just read them because otherwise you have to turn your mic on and off. We have Gina Driscoll, PSTA's Vice Chair from St. Petersburg, Dan Saraki, PSTA's Secretary-Treasurer from Oldsmar, Janet Long, our past chair representing Pinellas County, Josh Schulman, representing St. Petersburg, Vince Cox, representing Pinellas County, Richard Bennett from North Reddington Beach, representing our beach communities, David Albritton, representing Clearwater, Jamie Robinson, representing Largo, Keith Sabile, representing Pinellas Park, Renee Flowers, representing Pinellas County, Kathleen Peters, also representing Pinellas County, Jeff Gow, representing Dunedin, Michael Friedovich, representing Gulfport and other inland cities, and Deborah Figgs Sanders, representing St. Petersburg. And this is great, everybody's here. Thank you all. We've got a super quorum. Okay, now's the time for public comment on the consent agenda items or items not on the agenda. Are there any members of the public in the lobby who wish to speak? I don't see anybody.
There's no one in the lobby that would like to speak.
Thank you.
No public comment.
Okay. Are we taking comment online or on Zoom?
We are not.
Okay. Okay. This morning we have a nice recognition and then a presentation of how PSTA is recognizing Black History Month. Our 2020 Driver of the Year is Mr. Alkus Snell. I understand he's joined us virtually along with Director of Transportation, Jeff Thompson, who will introduce him. Jeff?
Yes, good morning. Thank you, Chair Gerard. Appreciate that. Good morning, board members. I'm Jeff Thompson, the Director of Transportation. It is my sincere pleasure this morning to introduce the PSTA 2020 Driver of the Year. The drivers chosen to represent are 390 bus operators with outstanding performance in areas of safe driving, preventable accidents, attendance, and customer service. The PSTA Driver of the Year for 2020 is Mr. Alkus Snell. I have a special connection to Alkus. I had the privilege of interviewing Al for this job years ago, and I was impressed by his great personality. He always has a smile on his face, even when he has his mask on, and he's friendly with all whom he meets. He displays a great degree of professionalism throughout 19 years of driving for PSTA. On a personal note, Al has been married for 32 years with a son, a daughter, and 3 grandchildren, which he loves dearly in his family. Al puts in a lot of hours working on our extra board, driving all of our routes and providing the backbone to our operation with the other extra board operators. So as our Driver of the Year, Al will vie for the FPTA State Driver of the Year Award later on this year. So please join me in congratulating Alkus Snell, the 2020 PSTA Driver of the Year. And Al has been able to join us this morning. Al, would you like to make a couple comments and say hello, please?
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning. I want to thank I want to thank Jeff Thompson and his staff for picking me as driver of the year. And I guarantee I will not let you all down, and I will do my job the best of my ability I can do. And I want to thank everyone for choosing me to be driver of the year.
Yay!
All right, thank
All
you.
right, thank you, Al, very much. Chair Gerard, back to you. Thank you.
Okay. All right, our second presentation this morning is about PSTA's efforts for Black History Month. PSTA's Director of Marketing and Communications, Whitney Fox, along with PSTA's Senior Organizational Development Manager, Tamika White, will present this item. Whitney?
Hi, good morning, Chair and esteemed board members. How are you today? Like the Chair Gerard said, my name is Whitney Fox. I'm the Director of Communications and Marketing, and I'm here today and excited to tell you about our 2021 Black History Month campaign. We decided to form a diverse committee with colleagues from departments across the agency to really give them a seat at the table and brainstorm diverse ideas that would make our campaign stronger and more representative of our agency and our entire community this year. So the committee got us to where we are today in creating our 2021 campaign called Driving Diversity, which has 4 components: an external bus wrap, internal bus signage, a digital campaign, and internal virtual employee celebration. And Tamika White, our HR Senior Organizational Development Manager, was a major contributor from the committee, and I've asked her to present with me today. So I'm going to hand it over to Tamika. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Whitney, and good morning, board members. My name is Tamika White, and I'm the Senior Organizational Development Manager in our HR department. PSTA has supported the annual MLK Day Parade in the past, but last year, 2020, was really the first year that we wrapped a bus for the occasion. We had such a great time engaging with the community last year, and we're excited to participate again this year, but of course, the parade was canceled due to the COVID pandemic. Still, we thought it was important to celebrate Black History Month and show our support for the community, so we moved forward with a 2021 bus wrap design.
Next slide, please. So our committee wanted to go in a new direction with this year's design and really support local art. We were truly inspired by these beautiful murals that you see here that are featured near the Deuces neighborhood in St. Petersburg, and learned that they were done by a local Black artist, Zulu painter. Next slide.
So Zulu Painter is a local artist based in St. Petersburg, but his large-scale mural work can be seen all across the U.S. On his website, Zulu's bio reads, "The vibrant colors in his paintings help to convey his goal of creating mindful art that uplifts the viewer with positive energy." And this is exactly the vibe that we were going for with our new bus wrap design. Not only did we want to support local art, but we wanted to give a voice and representation to the Black community by selecting a diverse piece.
Next slide, please. So this was really great because Tamika actually found this fantastic mural by Zulu Painter on his website and suggested that we use this mural as it speaks to the themes explored in Black History Month and PSTA's mission as an agency in terms of our diversity and inclusion initiative. So one aspect of this mural that our committee loved were the words that are really artistically intertwined in the artwork. Words like community, educate, unity, trust, and love. So when we went on a field trip to see the mural in person, we actually quickly learned that this building no longer exists. So we knew that we had to bring it back to life. Next slide, please. So this is our 2021 bus design for Black History Month. We love that we took this mural and turned it into a moving mural that you will see all throughout the county. So keep an eye out for it when you're out throughout Pinellas County. I'm sure you're going to spot it right when you see it. Next slide, please.
Another aspect of our Driving Diversity campaign is honoring Rosa Parks. To celebrate her legacy and her February 4th birthday, we dedicated a front seat on every PSTA bus in her honor for the entire course of Black History Month. As a transit agency, we feel it's our duty to ensure that Ms. Park's story is never forgotten and to celebrate her contribution for the fight for equality on transit.
Next slide. Now, another aspect of our campaign we're really excited to share with you is you may be familiar with our procurement director, Mr. Al Burns. He's one who's always very highly motivated, and he was part of our committee. He brought to our attention that we are continuously exceeding our DBE goals, which stands for Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, by leveling the playing field by providing small businesses that are owned and operated by socially and economically disadvantaged individuals a fair opportunity to compete for our contracts to work for PSTA. Now, this is not new. We've been exceeding these goals for a few years now, and it's always been a focus and a priority at PSTA. We currently have $5 million worth of contracts going towards small minority-owned businesses. So we thought we should shed some light on our efforts and really set an example. So our team interviewed 6 of our successful business partners who run Black-owned businesses, such as you can see here, Cynthia Parks, the president and CEO of our marketing agency, Jones Worley, Nathan Niles, the president and CEO of Nextlight Incorporated, our telecommunications engineering consultant, and Elaine McLeod, president and CEO of McLeod Transportation and Associates. So we asked them in their interviews to share their thoughts in regards to the importance of supporting Black-owned and minority-owned businesses. And we ran a digital campaign on our social media, which is still ongoing today. So you can see that on our social media running all throughout the month of February. Next slide, please.
This is really just the tip of the iceberg of our diversity and inclusion strategy at PSTA, but we're happy to share this campaign with you. PSTA is actively committed to promoting diversity and inclusion initiatives in support of our agency, minority-owned businesses, our writers, and the community. Together, we are driving diversity initiatives every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I just wanted to say that last year you did the same thing with the Rosa Parks seat in the front of the bus. And I was really pleased to see that nobody ever, the whole month I was riding the bus, sat in that seat. And people would get on the bus and look at it and just go, yeah. All right, and keep moving.
That's good.
So, okay, next we have committee updates. We welcome back Duncan Cover, our Transit Riders Advisory Committee Chair. Thank you and the other members of the TRAC Committee for your service. Duncan?
Thanks. Can everyone hear me? Thank you, Chair Gerard and Mr. Miller, the board. I appreciate it. You received my report in writing, and I thank the staff for keeping you guys up to date. I apologize for the several meetings that I've missed. TRAC met virtually on February 16th, and that's because of COVID. If you think the riders advocates are the most vulnerable that there are to this disease, like myself, we're vulnerable by age. Several of the riders are vulnerable from physical or certainly economic disadvantage. And most of us care for others, support others who are vulnerable. And so the state mandate for us to meet in person was absurd and kind of heartless. So our temporary solution was, which I think very wise, is that we will continue to meet in person once we all reach a consensus that we feel safe to do that. Temporarily, we suspended quorum votes. We are meeting in virtually, continually. We still have public access, folks that can dial in using that protocol, but because it doesn't meet the state mandate, we're doing the most important part, which is we're receiving the knowledge that PSTA gives us. We're giving them our feedback, and we're still being goodwill ambassadors. Those are the most important parts. Those couple quorum votes, that's not what's important. What's important is our health and also the information. And so I'd like to thank the staff and certainly the board for your patience during this time while we do the most important thing, which is keep everybody healthy. In the interim, we suspended term limits for 1 year and also leadership. And I'll tell you, 1 year is plenty. We're grooming leaders for next year. And it's nice to see we're already starting to see those seats fill in again. During the initial months of COVID, we lost members and we're not getting them filled, but now things are leveling out, especially with the vaccinations now coming. So the feeling is, I have no prediction, I don't have a crystal ball, but things are going to get back to normal. This month, we received 2 briefings. I'm sure you guys have seen them as well. You've been involved in them. First on the PSTA access, replacing Care Ride, which is of extreme importance to our members. Actually, as you know, some of them actually participated in that project. Wonderful information. It was met with enthusiasm by our committee. And then we were briefed on the progress on the Clearwater Hub, the Intermodal Center. Again, folks who live in Mid-County like myself, of great interest. And again, giving you guys great feedback. It's the reason track is out there, the voice of the riders. We appreciate PSTA support and we love giving you our support back. We're alive, we're meeting our purpose, and appreciate your attention. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Okay, I just read here on the agenda that I'm supposed to give a Forward Pinellas report, and I don't have one, so.
I do.
Okay. I do have one, thank you.
Okay.
The Forward Pinellas Board held a hybrid meeting on February 10th. The board awarded 2 complete streets projects. One in the city of Tarpon Springs received a $100,000 concept planning grant for the Diston Avenue concept plan, and the city of St. Petersburg was awarded $1 million construction grant for 22nd Street South, which will make Commissioner Welch very happy. The board held a workshop on January 29th. Ideas discussed included building regional partnerships as well as jobs, employment, tourism, resiliency, safety, and transportation planning. Forward Pinellas staff is working on developing spotlight areas based on discussion for board review. We recently learned that several local governments have made state legislative earmark requests. These requests, if approved, would push back projects currently in the Florida Department of Transportation work program, as there is no legislative set-aside for earmarks. That comes out of the general budget that funds everything in the state. Forward Pinellas stresses that we need to work through a collective process for setting priorities and avoid the potential damage earmarks can cause. The TMA Leadership Group, representing the MPOs in Pinellas, Hillsborough, and Pasco counties, will next meet on Friday, March 12th. The focus of the meeting will be a discussion about potential priorities for regional express bus service between the 3 counties. And finally, please join us in Bike Your Own City, a self-guided scavenger hunt throughout Pinellas County during the month of March. To learn more, visit the forwardpinellas.org website. And for a report from TBARTA, Commissioner Long.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before I give the report on TBARTA, I have a question about the TMA Leadership Group. Do we know where that meeting is going to be this time?
I don't.
Hopefully it's not out in the hinterlands like it has been.
I don't think so.
Just
Cassandra, if you're on the Zoom, do you know when the TMA Leadership Group is next scheduled to meet?
I know it's scheduled to meet on March, I believe it's March 12th or 13th, whatever that Friday is. But let me check real quick and maybe have an answer for you by the end of the report.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra.
All right.
Okay, well, now for the TBARTA report. The TBARTA board met, gosh, it seems like forever ago, but I think it was last week. And the majority of our meeting was spent discussing the recent bill that Senator Brandis has had to dissolve TBARTA from the state statute. And as you can imagine, that caused quite a kerfluffle. Not to mention there was a lot of innuendo going around about several members of our TBARTA board supporting the dissolution of TBARTA. And so I asked for a vote of confidence from the rest of the members of the board. And while they didn't want to go that far, we did finally get a vote of confidence in the mission and objectives of TBARTA. And then that led into another rather deep dive discussion about the necessity to make some very substantial changes within TBARTA. And I asked the board, this all started at the on the executive committee level and morphed into our big board meeting. So at the end of the day, we being myself and a few other folks are meeting to craft a plan to be able to dig us out of the ditch again, to get us through the next 2 years without having to go to Tallahassee and plead and beg for dollars, which heretofore have been used to support operations and salaries of the agency. That said, because of the memorandum of understanding that we created several years ago with PSTA, it positioned TBARTA to not have to do that every year. And unfortunately, it's been drifting off in a different direction. So anyway, long and short, we're going to come back at our next meeting, which is going to be, actually, we're going to call an emergency meeting at some point in March to discuss this further and hopefully have a plan. And I do want to let everyone know that henceforward, our new commissioner, Commissioner Renee Flowers, is our PSTA appointment to TBARTA, and she'll be doing the reports from TBARTA. All right, Renee? Good job. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Okay, now's the time for the consent agenda. Are there any items that anybody wants to pull? We have approving January 27 minutes, purchase of bulk fluids, and AVA extension in St. Petersburg.
Move approval, Madam Chair, if there are no.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Yes. Okay, Commissioner Albritton. All right. In that case, please pull up the voting system. Oops. Thank you.
Who are we missing? We got.
Hold on a second. I am a yes vote. Whoever.
Okay, thank you. All right, and
So it was unanimous?
that was unanimous? Yes, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, our first action item is PSTA Access Paratransit Operations Contracts. Okay. Our next item is very important for so many people in our community who need public transportation. I'm very proud of the work PSTA has done over the past several months to get us to this point, as well as the PSTA Finance Committee, who I understand are recommending approval of these contracts. Brad, can you kick us off?
Yes, thank you, Chair Gerard. Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy to be here today after a very long process that has involved a lot of people that you are going to soon hear from. This is a very big contract. It's a big contract amount. It's a very long contract because we're picking a partner, but it's big in terms of how important it is to PSTA. Again, this is our paratransit services contract. Our services that we have to provide for people with disabilities. If you would go to the first slide, Julie. Yeah, that one. So this morning, we are recommending, and as Chair Gerard said, the Finance Committee is recommending 2 contracts this morning to replace the one contract partner we've had for a very long time, CareRide. But our 2 contracts this morning to approve are with a company called First Transit and also a company called Bay Area Metro, which is better known of all of us as Clearwater Yellow Cab and United Taxi. Both, if you drive up and down US 19, you can see both of them on both sides of the road. They're both owned by the same gentleman who you'll see this morning. Next slide. Again, the reason we are here is because we are obligated by the Americans with Disabilities Act to provide paratransit to customers who otherwise cannot ride the bus system because of a disability. For a very long time, PSTA has contracted that requirement out to a private company. For decades, that has happened. Other transit systems run it with their own employees, like HART, but we've always chosen to use a private partner. That partner has been an awesome partner for a very long time in CareRide. But CareRide, owned by the parent company Baycare Health System, contacted PSTA about a year ago and notified us, partly due to the pandemic and partly not, that they wanted to get out of the transportation business. And they were going to either sell CareRide or close it down. And luckily, we were able to negotiate with Baycare to give us a year-long extension while we did a competitive procurement and got a new partner to come in here to Pinellas County and provide this service. So I'm very happy today that we've found those partners and are ready to move forward. Now, for those of you who have been on PSTA, you often know that we often present the item and then we have Al Burns, our procurement director, finish with how we bought the product. But I'm actually going to have him go first. And then he is going to be followed by a number of other folks that you know or you will get to know. Our Chief Operating Officer, James Bradford, our Chief Financial Officer, Debbie Leas, and our Director of Mobility, Bonnie Epstein. But what I'm most excited about, the way this procurement process went, was how involved and inclusive it was. About 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, on my very first meeting ever in this room, I sat here and it happened to be the meeting that they were awarding the contract for paratransit. And this room, we didn't have COVID, was jam-packed with customers. Customers who came out in droves, and I did not know anybody. I sat there and I was clueless, but they spoke so passionately about how this is the service that they rely on to, some of them, to keep living because they're going to necessary doctor's appointments. And from then on, this contract, then 5 years later, it also became a very crowded room when we awarded the contract to CareRide. I know how important this is to our customers, and so I was so thankful that Al Burns invited our customers to participate in the procurement process. They are the stakeholders in this, and you'll hear a little bit from them as well. And finally, I just want to really express my appreciation to one of our board members, Mr. Vince Cox, who, as many of you who know him, know that his career was involved in paratransit. He worked for CareRide for a very long time. He was sort of the heart and soul of that organization, and they were an amazing company. And he has been advising me for as long as he's been on PSTA, and then he also advised all of us through the procurement process to get a good customer and focus on what is important, the customers. Now, I know today is sort of a maybe bittersweet day for Mr. Cox because it also is sort of symbolic of that we are saying goodbye to a great partner in CareRide and the system of CareRide and moving forward into a whole new direction. As many of you know, we are very focused on sort of this idea of being a mobility manager. And this idea of hiring two contractors rather than just one is part of that. And you'll hear about that later. But I just want to express my gratitude to Vince for what he's brought and the perspective that he's brought. And as the chair of the Finance Committee, he was there along the way. So with that, I'll pass it off to our most motivated individual, Mr. Al Burns. Al?
Thank you, Brad. Good morning, Madam Chair, board members. My name is Al Burns, and I'm your highly motivated procurement director, and it is a pleasure to be here this morning. I'd like to walk you through the procurement process. We're recommending 2 10-year contracts, with a 5-year base and 1 5-year option. As many of you that have been on the board know, normally we ask that Brad, the Chief Executive Officer, have the ability to exercise the option. In the action item that we present to you this morning, we are not asking you to allow Brad to exercise the option because we know how big this contract is and how important it is to our customer. 10-year contract, the longest that PSTA has ever had. And there is a reason for that, Madam Chair and board members. We are specifically doing a 10-year contract to cover the capital costs. This allows the contractor to spread the capital costs over the 10 years or over the base term of the contract. And at the end of the day, like my boss, the CFO, it saves us money. Additionally, the real expenses will be managed by Bonnie Epstein and her MOD team. Behind the companies, you'll notice 3 letters, NTE. That stands for not to exceed. The first transit contract will not exceed $101 million. The Bay Area Metro contract will not exceed $12 million. Over that 101 and the 12 million is over the life or 10-year period. During the course of the contract, if we notice that we are going over in those amounts, we will swiftly bring this to the finance and board to ask for more monies to be put on those contracts. As Brad said, we did a lengthy procurement process because we wanted to make sure that we picked the right partner for PSTA and, more importantly, the right partner for our patrons. We received a total of 6 proposals. However, one of them was deemed non-responsive. They did not bring back all the appropriate paperwork. So staff evaluated 5 proposals. We had tremendous amounts of competition. All of the proposals submitted had teaming arrangements, better known in the contracting community as subcontractors. All of which the subcontractors were very good and the teams were very good. Innovative proposals and new approaches to providing the paratransit service. However, we had to narrow that down and we picked the top 2 firms that we're recommending. Next slide, please. As Brad said earlier, we're recommending 2 contracts because there's 2 types of services that paratransit offers. It offers ambulatory service and it offers wheelchair service. Ambulatory consists of approximately 175,000 rides annually, and wheelchair offers approximately 120,000 rides annually. Bay Area Metro, they'll be providing 30% of the rides, 30% of the ambulatory rides. First Transit will be providing 100% of the wheelchair rides. First Transit has a subcontractor named Userve that will be providing majority of the ambulatory rides on behalf of First Transit. A point of interest is that Userve operates the same business model as Uber and Lyft. Board members, I would also like to commend First Transit on their DBE commitment. As the DBELO for the agency, I was so excited to see that they have committed a 2.78% DBE commitment to this project, which has a value of over $3 million. Vu, at this time, I'd like for you to show our partners, and if our partners could show their, turn their screens on and wave to our board into our public. Thank you, Vu. Madam Chair, one of the things we realized, and with Brad leadership, is we understand the importance of our riders that we serve. So we asked that the track committee take part in this process. Gloria and Kim, they did a magnificent job in participating in the selection process. Also, Commissioner Cox, I want to thank you so much sincerely for your leadership. And we chose you to help us through this process because, as Brad said, your extensive background in paratransit operations. At this time, I would like to invite Gloria and Kim for any kind remarks they would like to make.
Who would you like to have begin?
You, Gloria.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say I am so grateful that PSTA really sought out the perspectives of Kim and I. We have been very happy with Care Ride, and we were concerned that this change might affect service quality. Al and the whole team from PSTA used such a thorough, methodical, data-driven approach to this evaluation and asked for our input at virtually every single step through the whole process. As a result of that, I am optimistic that this new chapter with these new suppliers has the best opportunity to continue to provide us with great service while also addressing the financial requirements of PSTA and the taxpayers of Pinellas County. Thank you very much, PSTA and Al Burns.
Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Gloria. Kim?
I am extremely grateful that PSTA offers paratransit to the disabled in our community. I've been a client of the service since 2003. I've witnessed the worst and best of paratransit contractors through the years. I was honored when Al asked me to assist the team in identifying a new paratransit contractor. Thanks, Al. Anyway, after months of research, I feel that the team has identified the best paratransit contractors for the disabled in our community.
Thank you, Kim. Madam Chair, I've also invited our new partner, upon board approval, our new partners. Bay Area Metro that Brad spoke about, Mr. Nick Canvas is here with us. Also, First Transit team, I've asked to attend with us, led by Mr. Rusty Skeeter, the Regional Vice President, James Kaufman, Director of Business Development, and our local hometown favorite, Mr. John Pettis-Gerard. Both of the providers are bringing majority of the staff from Care Ride. Both providers have been working and have been communicating with each other to bring majority of the staff from Care Ride. That not only means the operators, but that means mechanics, dispatchers, schedulers. Majority of the Care Ride team will be going to either First Transit or Bay Area Metro. What does this mean to our customer? It means virtually no change in service quality, and that benefits our community. Next slide, please. With a contract of this size, we had to do a lot of analysis. And there are two words that are important in procurement before we bring a contract, any contract before you, Madam Chair, and that is to make sure that the pricing is fair and reasonable. With the size of this contract, I developed the Finance Task Force. I love that, Finance Task Force. The task force consisted of a whole lot of PSTA staff. First off, it consisted of David Yoder, the contracting officer, a member of my staff. Michael Hansen, Eagle Eye Mike, the director of finance. Nick Sagan, one of our fresh up-and-comers, the budget analyst. And my favorite employee, Ms. Debbie Leas, my boss, the CFO. The reason we did this is to make sure the prices that we receive are fair and reasonable. I know it's hard to read, but there's a chart over to the right of that slide. We check the IT line items. We check the IT costs. We check the capital costs. We check their profit. We check their overhead. We check virtually every line item to make sure that the pricing that we're bringing to you this morning is fair and reasonable. In your packet, you can see the detail and how we came to the NTE amount. And if you have any questions, the finance task force, we're ready to answer them. And commissioners, also in your packet is a chart that compares the pricing that we're bringing before you against our peer agencies, not only locally here in the state of Florida, but in other areas of the country that are considered mid-sized transit agencies. This helps us make sure that the pricing that we're bringing before you is fair and reasonable. And Madam Chair, this morning, with this action item we're bringing before you, I'm pleased to inform you that the pricing that we are bringing before you, I consider to be fair. We consider to be fair and reasonable. I did not do this on my own. Brad called me the quarterback of the team, but I had a heck of an offensive line and a backfield. And James Bradford, he served as my left tackle that protected my blind side. And at this time, I would like to ask James to walk us through how we lowered the initial cost by over $17 million. Mr. Bradford?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. James Bradford, Chief Operating Officer. Good morning to the board. We big guys, we always get put on the offensive line in football, but that's okay. I'll play my role. I appreciate it. As Al noted, the price was fair and reasonable. It didn't start out that way. Certainly, once the numbers started to come in, were they within market of what other agencies may pay for paratransit service? Sure, but it was not affordable, not for us. When we started this out and we started to see some of the numbers that were coming in to continue this very important service, it wasn't affordable. We needed to find savings. Of course, we needed to find the sweet spot because we couldn't afford to have another provider go bankrupt in the middle of this important service. And so we didn't want to go through that again. And like you see in the picture here with Ed Harris and the Apollo 13 team from the movie, if you've seen it, they were on a mission, we were on a mission. And that mission had to evolve and change over time. We had to re-strategize in order to get this down to an area where it was going to be sustainable and affordable for us long-term. So we had over 8 negotiation sessions to try to meet in the middle, each side sacrificing a bit more each time. Some of the cost reductions that we discovered came in the form of changes to the scope of work. Now, not at the cost to our customers, not anything that they've enjoyed that keeps our customers satisfied. That's our number one priority. But you have to understand, for every bit of additional risk a contractor takes on, we, PSTA, we pay a premium for it. So that was our strategy in order to bring this down by millions of dollars. So we did creative things like previously, we would have the contractor bill us per trip. And now we're going to have them bill us per hour. That gives them a little bit more guarantees, allows them to be more strategic in how they were going to propose the numbers to us. So coming off of a pandemic year, still ongoing with trip numbers going up and down, that was a more aggressive way where we could kind of find some savings. We're going to purchase the fuel in a volatile fuel market. This is another way to kind of control savings and allows these contractors to be more aggressive in their pricing to us to get us closer to where we need to be. We're going to control the efficiencies. So through our new software that's forthcoming in the upcoming months, we're going to take on that risk and make sure we run as efficient a service as possible. And we're going to spread out the startup costs in the first year over the length of the contract. So once we spread out those big startup numbers, hopefully that'll create savings over time. So PSC is going to be more hands-on as we take on these responsibilities. And, you know, we mentioned the taxi service. PSTA and Bay Area Metro have learned through the evolution of our mobility programs how to make taxi a premium service, and in many respects, a service where the customers love and adapt to them. So we put together a package. We've worked very hard on it. We believe it's going to serve our riders, our customers very well. Special thanks to Kim and Gloria, who you heard here today, also serve on our track committee. They know this service very well. They vetted it with us. Also special thanks to board member Vince Cox, who gave us rave reviews and complimented us on the entire process. We appreciate his guidance. So we're going to continue to run a paratransit operation for people who are unable to use our fixed route services in the most safe, effective, efficient, reliable way possible with high quality. So we received a unanimous vote of approval from our finance committee last week of moving this contract forward. We're confident we're delivering a premium paratransit service, one where we can remain fiscally responsible. So to our Madam Chair, our board of directors, and to all of our PSTA Access customers, you have my commitment, and I know you have Bay Area Metro and First Transit commitment, that these services will not be substandard, but the same high quality that we've come to expect with the rest of the services that PSTA provides. With that, I'm going to turn over to my esteemed colleague, Debbie Leas, our Chief Financial Officer, to explain just how the projected cost that we ended up with will fit into our longer-term budget projections. To get it ready, Julie, next slide, please.
Thank you, James. Since James has the left tackle position, which is the preferred position, I'm going into the hockey season here. And what has been negotiated that James talked about is sustainable because we saw it coming. Much like Wayne Gretzky, who's pictured here, the greatest hockey player in history, who when asked why he was so great, he replied, "Most people skate to where the puck is. I skate to where the puck is going to be." So with the population growing older, we saw ridership increasing, costs going up, and we saw that the old way of doing business, paratransit business, was certainly not sustainable. For those of you who are new on the board, Brad had mentioned I had to renegotiate the Care Ride contract and get board approval to help them survive long enough for PSTA to be able to come to this day to present new providers, all before Care Ride is going out of business on July 1st. So this really started several years ago in a Gretzky-like move, where we knew the contracts would be at an increased cost with increased ridership. In response, we got ahead of the puck, and we started with new eligibility processes, which Commissioner Cox has certainly helped us with. We developed new programs like Mobility on Demand, and we were setting the stage for PSTA to be in control. And when we're in control, we are going to have cost-saving measures. So as your financial goalie, I am pleased and confident to say that these contracts are financially sustainable within our 5-year projections, with mobility management coming to the rescue, and Bonnie's going to tell us how she is going to take us in control. Take it away, Bonnie. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Debbie. Good morning, board members. So I'd like to go over where we've come from, and as my slide shows, focus on where we're heading for paratransit services in the future. So in the past, prior to 2019, all service for paratransit riders was done by Care Ride. During that time, riders only had one choice and one provider if they wanted to use PSTA services. Beginning in 2019, riders had a new option in addition to the regular paratransit service on Care Ride. That's PSTA's Mobility on Demand program, where riders call PSTA and get an on-demand ride with Lyft, United Taxi, or wheelchair transport, with Uber as an option to come in the future. So today, about 75% of the trips that PSTA provides for our paratransit riders are taken on Care Ride, and 25% of the trips are taken on demand. In addition to our new partners, First Transit and Bay Area Metro, that we'll be bringing on in July of this year, PSTA will also be moving the call center from the contractor's responsibility to PSTA, meaning one phone number for all accessible services, both paratransit and on-demand. So we're managing the options that our riders have. We're moving to being a true mobility manager the way that Brad has been talking about for years. So the key to this mobility manager move will be the software that my team will be using to make reservations for both paratransit and on-demand services, allocate trips to different providers, and much more. This software procurement is out on the street right now, and you'll be seeing me again very soon with our recommendation. So for the future, we hope that our new software and with our new call center structure that we'll have 50% of the accessible trips taken on paratransit and 50% of the trips taken on demand. With this new model, not only do riders have more options, but PSTA has more control, and the whole operation will be more sustainable. And now I'll pass it back to Brad for a summary of this presentation.
Thank you, Bonnie. Thank you, Bonnie and Debbie and James and Al and everybody that participated in this. This has been a joint effort. So let me just, and I know it's been a long presentation, so let me just summarize. Again, the reason we're here today is because BayCare announced that they were closing down CareRide, and we were going to lose them as a partner on July 1. We have to have a contractor, and with that deadline, we have to provide paratransit, and with that deadline approach, we had to seek a new contractor. We did look at whether we could bring this in-house with our own employees, but just ramping up that quickly with the deadline looming, we felt this was the better option, for now at least. The procurement process did include significant stakeholder input for the first time, and it had very strong, I think, really good competition. We got really good proposals that addressed the needs of our community. First Transit and Bay Area Metro, I believe, are very well positioned to have a smooth transition. In years past, the transition from one contractor to the next has been sometimes rough. But I think with this approval, with the commitments that both those companies have made, I think we are in a strong position this summer to have a smooth transition. And finally, despite indeed the prices that we received are higher than what CareRide was proposing us, we saw that in advance. And these contracts are sustainable for PSTA's future, mainly because of this new mobility focus that Bonnie was talking about. The fact that we are not having a one-size-fits-all CareRide system that everybody has to use. But now we have many different options that we can have them select. Next slide. So, Madam Chair and the PSTA Board, today's recommendation are 2 5-year contracts with each with a 5-year option for access paratransit services. The first one being First Transit for a total amount not to exceed $101 million over the 10 years, and Bay Area Metro for a total amount not to exceed $12 million over the 10 years. Now, as Al mentioned, this is going to come back to the PSTA board to ratify the option in 5 years. So if things are going great, fantastic, we'll just approve it. If they're not going great, we will be making changes. And we have that ability now because of the flexibility and the system that we're moving toward to make those changes. So with that, thank you very much for hearing us. I'm sure the team can answer any questions, and we'll try to move forward.
Well, I want to thank you all for all the work. I know that we were a bit disconcerted when we realized we had to rebid this entire service, and you know, there was concern years ago when I started on the board about the services that we were providing, and I'm glad to hear that PSTA is going to be having much more control over the process and the service itself. So, Vince, we'll figure out how to.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair, and I want to thank Brad, James, Debbie, and Al Burns for giving me recognition for what I've tried to accomplish here. I have to say that after last Wednesday's finance meeting, I heard the presentation, I heard it, but I simply didn't listen. I didn't listen to the details. And where I have a concern is with our ambulatory service. We are now going to to providers that just simply use contractors. Now, mind you, it's 175,000 rides a year. Contracted employees, it's a whole different category than a regular employee. And that being said, there are no benefits for them. There's no health insurance. There's no unemployment insurance. There's no, I wrote it all down, there's no Medicare, Social Security match, no worker comp, no vacation. They're permitted to choose their own hours. And this especially is because Userve, as Al said, is a company like Lyft and Uber, which really they're under federal guidelines that they can't wear uniforms, they can't, they can choose their own hours, let me put it that way. And it concerns me, and I think the board should be aware of it. We use Uber and Lyft in our MOD program, which I think is fine. It's fine. It's not like a full-time employee. They do it, I don't know, on the side, or maybe it is their full-time job. But I just have a problem with it, with the TNC model with us, because I believe it fosters economic injustice to the employees, and I don't know what kind of product we're going to get out of this. So I know this may be stunning to those that I've worked with, but I really had, last Thursday after the meeting, I went home and I went, like, what did I do? And so I started poring over everything I could to find out where we're going with this. And I just want to say I have an issue with, I have no issues with Brad Miller, with James, with any of the staff here. But I'm concerned about going forward this way with such a large contract, 5 years with another 5-year extension. And I'd like the board just to be aware of that, all right? Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Flowers?
Same concerns when I saw over $2 million being appropriated for subcontractor services. I also have a question. During the presentation, if I heard you correctly, the comment was made that the reason for the 10-year contract, 5-year with a 5-year renewal, was based on equipment purchases or vehicle purchases and the depreciation of those purchases over time. But typically, even in government contracts, the longest you would look at maybe computer technology is 3 to 5 years, and then for vehicle, it would be up to 7 years to trade out. So is that the rationale for going to a 5-year with a 5-year renewal? Because that's a long time. And when you're looking at utilizing subcontractor services, you'll be purchasing fewer vehicles because they'll be driving their own. And you won't be providing any maintenance or upkeep or anything of that nature for those vehicles. And the other concern with subcontractors is they come and go. Yellow Cab, St. Pete had this problem some years ago. If any of you remember when Yellow Cab used to be the primary transporter for Medicaid services. And the issue was because those persons could come and go, there was a concern with the professionalism when they were picking people up, the timeliness from when they were picking people up, and the types of services that a client needed. Maybe that wasn't what was sent to their home. The contractor was just simply trying to provide the ride. The other question I have is, if you can give this to me, for the persons who will be fixed employees or full-time, what are their salaries? starting salaries or starting hourly wage.
Madam Chair.
Oh, Commissioner Long,
Well,
turn
yeah,
your mic on, I'm sorry.
If I,
I just,
turn me on?
I turned
Am
you
I on?
off,
Okay, good.
actually. Go ahead.
If I could ask or make a suggestion that this is a very large contract, I am concerned about, is anybody else here on a committee that this may have come before, either finance or? Yes? And was there any discussion there about these issues that Commissioner Cox has raised? Well, instead of getting into the weeds at the board level, because that's not really, I think this could be better worked out if it went back to committee. Is there a timeliness issue, Brad, about getting this done today? Because it seems to me that these questions are very concerning, I think, probably to all of us, and we would want to get answers to them before we move forward. And I also agree with Commissioner Flowers about the length of time of the contract, especially with somebody new, that we ought to have the opportunity to evaluate how things are going with regard to the concerns that Commissioner Cox has brought up. We have worked so hard at PSTA to maintain our reputation with our drivers and how they treat our customers, and we've even rewarded our drivers for the way in which they interact and the professionalism that they use under, I might add, some pretty difficult circumstances that a lot of us in this room have been either a passenger or witnessed. And I hate to see us get into all of that at a board level at this point when the companies involved have had no opportunities to address these things, including the salary issue, which I would think would be obviously, brought up at some level in the finance committee or whatever committee it's going to. Okay, I'm done. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
I apologize.
Go ahead.
My other questions, and if you want to send it back to committee, that's fine, but I still think that the responses to whatever concerns and questions should be provided to the full board so that they would have a comfort level if they do not have a comfort level at this point. I am very glad that we are moving towards enhancing our DBE participation, and just so you'll know, for me, every time I'm going to ask at what level are they participating. So are they primary on contracts? Are they subcontractors? We could have a 2.3% DBE, but it's still not something that's making an economic impact for minority women and small-owned businesses. And then the other concern or question that I have, at the very top of the budget, on the shorter, on the PowerPoint, it talks about the lines not including any corporate overhead related to profit. But if you look at line A9 and line M9, they both acknowledge that A9 is an administrative profit and M9 is a maintenance profit. So for the future, I will do a better job at just sharing my concerns, maybe through a written email to Brad, and they can be brought up to committee or something before we have this dialogue and discussion, for the full board. But this is a rather large contract, over $101 million is a lot of money. And I just want to make sure that we, are answering all the questions that need to be answered before we make a decision. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Bennett?
Yes, just a quick comment. I would, even though we all kind of have our personal opinions and while we think about different ways to run this operation, we've had an outstanding group of professionals make this recommendation and spend a lot of time working on it. So I would recommend that we approve the 2 5-year contracts.
Okay, we have a couple of, is that a motion?
Yes, I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I hear a second? Okay, Mr. Friedovich.
Cost was prior to the old contract. You got 101 million, and then you got 12 million. What was the other cost prior to this one?
So, Commissioner Friedrich.
Actually, it's Fridovich, by the way.
Fridovich.
Yeah, eventually
Okay.
we'll get it right.
Okay. The last Care Ride contract, I believe, was a 5-year contract with Care Ride not to exceed $35 million. So if you did that for 10 years, that would be about 70 million. That was back 5 years ago, with prices increased.
Right.
Well, we had projected that would grow to just about 100 million. So what you're approving today, apples to apples, is 113. So as mentioned, these prices, and we knew this was going to happen, we were getting a really great deal out of Care Ride. But again, they're not an option anymore. And Madam Chair, if I just have a quick second, I won't respond to everything they just said, but almost every question, I think every single question that Commissioner Flowers brought up was a key question and a component to making sure we got answers. We got answers from the bidders, from the companies. The issue of how much the employees are getting paid and what the benefits, specifically, I have no interest in sending our money to Cincinnati, Ohio, to the executives of First Transit. They're an enormous company. And we did ask them, because this is what contractors like to do. They don't tell you how much they're going to pay their people. They had to tell how much they're going to pay their drivers. First Transit came back and proposed a $15 an hour a pay increase for every single person that's doing this. Now, unfortunately, because it was so expensive and not sustainable for PSTA, we're going to phase that in. They're going to start, I believe, at $14 an hour, which is still a pay increase over what Care Ride was paying. And then they're going to grow to $15 next year, in a year's time. The questions about TNCs that Commissioner Cox raised up are my concerns as well. It's obviously a new day. But I was surprised, and I think we all were surprised, that every proposal we got, all 5 contractors that turned in, proposed the same thing. Subcontracting out the ambulatory trips to some kind of either taxi company or TNC or something like that. And quite frankly, I appreciated it, but the world has sort of changed in the last 5 years. As we know, Uber and Lyft coming into the world has made the Care Ride model of all employees, all of their own vehicles, just not sustainable. They're going under. And all these companies are now moving to this new model. The focus is on the customers. To Commissioner Long's question about whether or not there is a timeliness, there is this transition of hiring all of the Care Ride employees and moving them to their new companies, or getting them new jobs, making sure they get all the vehicles. That all has to happen by July 1. We committed to Baycare to allow them to close the doors on Care Ride by July 1. So I would be somewhat hesitant to send this back to the Finance Committee again. But Commissioner Cox, I hear what you're saying. I have those same concerns, and it's not like we're going to ignore this. We are going to be on this every single day. We have a whole staff. This is so part of what we do, and I think you know this. If it's not going well on August 1st, we now have the opportunity to move trips to where they will work. If the TNC model does not work, you'll be the first to know, and we now have the ability to make adjustments, where we didn't in the past. And I'll stop there.
Commissioner Schulman?
There we go. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. I echo Commissioner Cox's comments that after the Finance Committee meeting, it was a large amount of material to digest. And after the meeting, I came up with a list of other questions and considerations. And it is a large contract, which is going to lead to those additional issues. But I am concerned about the timeliness of being able to fulfill and keep service going for our paratransit riders. And one of the things that gave me a little bit of comfort was the non-exclusive clause in the contract. So I was hoping that on the board level, that part could be explained here so we know what our options are if we're not pleased with how things are actually working out.
Thank you, Commissioner Schulman. As Commissioner Schulman mentioned, the contract specifically states that this is not an exclusive arrangement with either First Transit or Bay Area Metro. PSTA is always at liberty to issue another bid for more, a new company or more service. And as Bonnie Epstein mentioned, and who leads our mobility program, we are always expanding our options for customers, whether it be little small wheelchair lift van companies that are out there with 1 or 2 vehicles and trying to use them, or different TNCs or whatever we can find. We certainly have that ability any day to switch these folks out or transition them to a different group. The real issue and what we really need that is very hard to find is enough wheelchair accessible vehicles to meet the demand on July 1. And First Transit, these bigger companies, they have the ability to buy large amounts of vehicles, wheelchair lift equipped vehicles, and get them here and get a facility and get set up to do that. There is not CareRide has the largest fleet of wheelchair accessible vans in Pinellas County, certainly in the Tampa Bay area, and they're going away. So we need to replace that. Their vehicles are not worth very much, as Vince knows, so that we need new vehicles. But that's sort of the time sensitivity, is making sure we can get those in. But again, there's no exclusiveness to this. If we need to move in a different direction, we can certainly do that.
Thank you. Vince?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I totally agree with Commissioner Long that I would like, and Commissioner Schulman, I would like to bring this back to committee. I have, as I first said here, that I heard that presentation last Wednesday, but I simply didn't listen and digest. It was a lot of material for a short amount of time, and I even had I knew more because I went to the track meeting and heard the same presentation. I've heard this presentation actually, and I keep looking at it online, and there's 76 views, and I believe I'm like 70 of those views, that this is such an important contract. And I don't know the procedure, but could we bring it back to committee in a week, or could someone help me with that? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Fig Sanders?
Thank you, Chair. I have a couple of questions and maybe a comment. I know when I first also saw it, I thought that was quite a bit of money. But what struck me was the terms of the 10-year period. In my conversation in regards to the transaction, one of the first things I said was because of the transition, we know every service is as good as the culture of the environment in which it's implemented. And so to see that there are so many subcontractors, that was my concern. And another question that I had was in regards to the vehicles. And as Mr. Miller basically said, that we're going to get all new vehicles, but I did not know if it was stipulated in the contract that the subcontractors had to also have a certain level of quality vehicles to ensure that the customers would receive that same service. So those were my two concerns. And then when I hear things like more bids and transition out to others, is that still tied to the current dollars associated with the project overall? Would extending additional service, would that be additional dollars? So I think I just made a couple of statements and just had a question.
Yeah,
Thank you.
and those are good questions. To the extent, yes, all of the vehicles, we have put in strict requirements that they be of high quality, and they cannot go over a certain mileage without being replaced. And they all have to be inspected by PSTA every year. So I think we're in the best place we can be. As far as the number of subcontractors or other things, you know, that's up to the bidders. That's the private sector chose that. We didn't say they had to do that. But I hear what you're saying also in that, and we don't want to have more subcontractors than we need. And so that's why it's very important to remember that our contract is with First Transit, is with this company that does this all over the country. In Florida, they provide the paratransit over in Orlando as well. And so we're not contracting with, it's their responsibility, and we're going to hold them accountable. We have performance penalties in the contract to make sure that they are held accountable on a daily basis. That's how this contract works.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So in the contract, does it have any stipulation in there that they, even if we do utilize some contractors, that they hire locally?
The contract stipulates, yes, how all the employees, how much all the employees make, and how the employees. I'm not sure if I understand your question.
Well, we have a lot of conversation in regards to when we bring business into the city. We have a lot of people that don't live in the city getting the employment. Well, we have residents that can't find employment. So I was wondering if there's any stipulation that says you have to hire locally. There's a certain percentage of its employees that will actually be tax-paying residents in the city in which they live.
Oh, that's a good question. We did, of course, ask each proposer to explain their hiring process. We didn't say that they had to live in a certain, in a certain part, but obviously, First Transit, one of the great things about First Transit was that they proposed to hire all the existing employees that are providing the service today, to interview first the existing employees that are providing this service today, and to keep that transition, which is the best thing for the customer. Second of all, that's one of the reasons why we picked a local company, the taxi cab company, Bay Area Metro, sort of as an alternative, to make sure that we had somebody that we knew. We know Nick Cambus, and he is right there in Clearwater with his services, and he has also been interviewing and will be hiring some Care Ride employees as well.
Thank you. Commissioner Long.
Yes, well, in full disclosure, I also know Nick, and I've known him for many, many years and from a past life. And I'm wondering if he might address for the board the issue of the culture within the organization of Bay Area Metro. I'm sorry, I don't know the other folks that are on the screen, but I do know Nick, and I thought maybe that might help, with some of the questions about knowing the culture of the organization with regard to the questions we've talked about. So is that appropriate, Madam Chair? I think it might be helpful.
I don't see why not.
Okay, good. Nick?
Good morning, Madam Chair, and other board members. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you and speak a little bit about this extremely valuable service that PSTA provides. we have been a partner with PSTA for many, many years, and I have sincere appreciation for your commitment to the community, as well as your staff has done an amazing job here. I have to tell you, it's been a very thorough vetting process. In terms of my company, our company is 98 years old this year. I'm very happy about that. My family's been here since the 1970s, so almost 50 years. Most of my team, which was in the RFP, we have almost 500 years of combined management experience right here in Pinellas County. Now, when we responded to the RFP, I knew this was extremely important. The ADA paratransit services are a service level that is extremely important to the transit authority. So we only responded to 30%. We offered to provide 30% as a resource to the community. We've been very fortunate to partner with PSTA on the MOD programs, the Mobility on Demand programs, since their inception in 2016. I think that the taxis have been a valuable partner through that time frame. Although I want to make the distinction with this ADA program, there is a difference. This is not off-your-shelf taxi service. This is a tailor-made taxi service. The RFP has asked us for new vehicles, drivers that are routed and scheduled, drivers that will be wearing a identification logoed shirt. The vehicles will be identified as participating in these PSTA programs. So there's a total difference in a routed and scheduled driver that is going to have a specific ADA paratransit drivers that will be focused on ADA paratransit trips. So it's not a driver that's out there picking up the general public. It's somebody that's focused primarily, their duties will be on this ADA paratransit service. It is extremely valuable and important to us. So I don't want you to think that I have to go to the grocery store. I got to go to Publix, and I know many of you on the board. So I would not want to disappoint you. My team would not want to disappoint you. We are committed to having a fresh fleet for this project. So I don't want you to think it's just an off the rack taxi service. It is not.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nick.
Commissioner Long, I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Schulman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's also, when looking at this and the timeliness of it, it's important to keep in mind, the other bids that we received are all using a similar structure when it comes to their employees. So it's not like we can, reject this and say, but this other firm is doing things in a different way that we'd like to see. If we reject this, we're going to a similar structure just with another company. And, if we had, a year, 2, 3 years to really, spread this out and vet it, or even determine whether we wanted to bring the service in-house and have PSTA handle it, I'd be all for that. But my real concern is, July 1st, making sure that our paratransit riders have adequate service. And this is not something, we can hold an emergency finance committee meeting tomorrow, but it's still not going to come before the board until next month. And you start looking at the timeline of making that happen, and that's where my concern is, any lack of continuity of service. And we're also not being presented with an alternative that addresses those concerns. All of the other alternatives have the exact same concerns. So, and I'm really appreciative of the job that Al and his team and the rest of the folks here have done, even though I still have questions. And I think we should still be reviewing how they're working, how we can tweak it, how we can talk to them about things, getting the track committee involved and letting us know what their experiences have been, being very vocal and communicating with them. I still think that this is the best way to go at this moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Cox? I don't know.
I'm on. Thank you, Madam Chair. I can address your concerns, Commissioner. In 2008, that's when CareRide first got the wheelchair contract, all right? It was awarded by the board in August of 2008. CareRide had to have 52 vehicles by October 1st. So what happened with the help of Baycare, they financed for, or helped to actually co-sign for 40 of the vehicles. We had to bring 12 vehicles down from Jacksonville Transit to meet the commitment of the contract. We all met over at, we were headquartered at that time at Yellow Cabs. We leased space from Yellow Cab over at US 19. The PSTA staff came over on a weekend, inspected all the vehicles. This was early September, approved those. We then had to label all the vehicles, make sure we had all the safety equipment in it, and we worked night and day to do that. And by October 1st, our first day of service, CareRide had never had more than 179 rides in one day. That day we had 435 rides, and we weren't late on one of them. So a time for, till July, we still have March, April, May, June. And I can tell you, CareRide at that time was able to implement this service within a month and a half. So, and also I want to say one other thing, that First Transit is going to hire, or it's actually going to interview the current CareRide employees. Now, mind you, the wheelchair service, a vehicle is provided and they're an employee. However, the paratransit part is like an Uber or Lyft, where that employee would have to provide their own vehicle, pay for their own gas, and so on and so forth, with no benefits. So that's all I have to say now. And I really wish we could bring this back to committee.
Thank you, Commissioner Albritton.
Yes, thanks, Madam Chair. Wow, it's a big contract. My comments are, knowing what CareRide, what we've paid CareRide, I know that they gave us a good deal on it. I know we're going to be paying more. Just a couple of things, that I like about this is that we're going to be going to more demand, which is good for our customers. It seems that this part of it that is going to be 70% of the ambulatory from First Transit is using U-Serve is something that all of the different people that bid on this are doing, because it's probably why Baycare went out of business, is because it's a different world today. And as Commissioner Bennett said, this is coming to the board right now. We haven't really had that much time to really look at the intricate details of this, but the PSTA staff, which I'm very familiar with, has vetted this, and it's gone to finance. I understand Commissioner Cox's concerns on this, but I understand the time element too. We need to make a decision so we can get going on this when CareRide stops their service. The things I like is it's not an exclusive bid, that if we can change it if it's not working. I like the expanding options and the 50% on demand in 23. So just what I'm being told right now, I'm leaning toward saying that we should go with this. And we can work things out if, if we have some small tweaking to do, I think we can do it.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Driscoll.
Thank you. And I really appreciate this discussion that we've had. Commissioner Cox, could you remind us, you had said that you would like to send it back to committee. So this did go through the Finance Committee, right?
Correct.
And so could someone from, or Brad, anyone, let me know what happened in the Finance Committee? Was it unanimously approved to be brought to the full board for a vote?
It was.
Okay, so if members of the Finance Committee still have questions about it, I wonder why it was brought here today. I mean, it just sounds like there's still questions from members of the Finance Committee, and yet it was voted unanimously to be brought to the board. That means that it achieved that level of approval to come here. So now it sounds like it wasn't time yet, but time is of the essence on this particular service that we want to provide. So I'm just wondering about the efficiency here, because now we've got it in front of all of us, and we need to take some kind of action today.
Right. And I think the issue is that if all of the proposals that we got had the same structure, then we'd have to put it out to bid again and wait for 60 to 90 days to get bids back and looked at, and there's just not a way to do that, as far as I can see.
Legally.
Well, yeah. Commissioner Saraki?
Oh, thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to say that I am on the Finance Committee, and then during that meeting, Gina, you have some good points. We spent almost 2 hours discussing this process. And during that process, we all voted yes, after we went through many, many questions about the finances and the amount of this process, this bid process. All in all, I would like to say that I would like to second this motion if I could, or do I have to reinstate the motion? Because the facts are that the staff, especially the staff, has done such an amazing job, and we talked about this at the Finance Committee meeting. So I'd like to make a second for this so we can take this to the board and decide what we'd like to do. And the last thing I'd like to say is Brad has done an amazing job in explaining this bid process to us for this contract. So I'd like to make a second.
Actually, I think it's probably a first.
Then I would like to
Because
make.
we didn't have a second.
Okay, then I would like to make a motion to approve.
I made the motion, did I not, Pat?
I thought there was a motion on the floor.
You did, but nobody seconded it, and then it's
Okay.
been an hour since
Then you can
then.
Call for a vote. The motion's been made.
What was the motion?
Well, I'd like
The
to.
motion was to approve the contract, right? Please.
Voted down, we'll do it over.
Right. Mr. Saraki's making a motion. We do have a couple of other people that would like to. Okay, thank you. Commissioner Long, did you have something else?
I did. It was really more to say, you know, that I think I am more than happy to move this agenda item forward. And I understand that Commissioner Bennett has made a motion to call the question, which really should shut down any further discussion. All I wanted to point out was, in the spirit of being fair and equitable, it might be nice just to take 2 minutes to hear from Russ at First Transit, because I did single out Nick. And if Commissioner Bennett would allow for that, Commissioner Bennett?
I think we should vote. We've had a lot of discussion, and we probably have maybe half of the board is opposed. We'll just vote and see how it goes.
Well, I don't think,
Up to the chair.
Mr. Zimmett, was that first motion still active to be seconded, or is this a first motion from Commissioner Saraki? It's a first. Or are you asleep over
The
there?
motion made by, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah,
The motion made by Commissioner Bennett died for lack of a second.
correct.
So Commissioner Schreck, if he wants to make a motion, can make a motion, then you need to take a second. Presently, you do not have a motion pending.
Make the motion.
I would like to make a motion to approve the PSTA Access Transit Paratransit Operation Contract.
And I will second it.
Thank you. Okay. Do we have any public comment on this?
Is there anybody in the
There's
lobby?
nobody in the lobby, right?
Clarissa's there.
There's no public comment on this issue.
Okay, thank you. All right, I have a motion and a second. Would you please open the voting system? Yeah, we're opening the voting system.
Mine is not. Got it.
We're missing a couple. One more?
I don't think you can abstain.
You can't abstain, I'm sorry.
No.
You can't abstain unless you have a conflict of interest.
Michael Fridovich.
Mr. Fridovich?
I think you can change it, can you? I can change it. Oh. You pressed the wrong button.
Okay, thank you. Okay, motion carries 13-2. Okay. Next issue. Thank you. Clearwater multimodal facility design. We did have a, what? Motion carried 13-2. Clearwater multimodal facility design, Abhishek.
Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. My name is Abhishek Dayal. I am the Director of Project Management Office. And I am joined by Mr. Al Burns, who is the Director of Procurement. And we're really excited to present this item for the board's consideration. Next slide, please. So the action requested of the board today is to award a 3-year contract with CDM Smith for a not-to-exceed amount of $2.3 million to complete the preliminary engineering and design for the Clearwater multimodal facility. Next slide. As many of you know, we are currently operating a passenger transfer facility by Park Street in downtown Clearwater, and that has been in operation close to 40 years. We've been serving 12 bus routes through that facility, and we've had ongoing capacity issues. Many of our buses are forced to park on the street because of lack of bus bays. We've had some roofing issues, roof leakage, and then also a lot of our newer hybrid electric buses have had issues going underneath the roof of the Park Street. And you can kind of see that in this picture here, where a newer hybrid electric bus is having some issues clearing the height of the roof. Next slide. So for those and other reasons, we are proposing a new facility, a multimodal facility located near Court Street and Myrtle. And being at the edge of downtown Clearwater, this provides for easier access and egress for our buses, so they won't have to go through the streets in downtown Clearwater. And this also has greater ability for us to expand in the future should our needs increase. In this graphic, you can see the Park Street facility and the proposed location for the new intermodal facility. It's also located adjacent to the CSX line, which could provide some opportunities in the future to position this facility for serving a passenger rail type service. So for those and other reasons, we are proposing to move forward with this area for a multimodal facility. Next slide. And so this facility will include 16 dedicated bus bays with enhanced passenger amenities. It'll also include some technology upgrades, including information on bus arrival and departure. And since I mentioned this is a multimodal facility as opposed to a bus facility, we will be enhancing access to pedestrians, improve multimodal connections. whether it's our connections to our very successful Direct Connect program with our partnership with Uber and Lyft, but also bike and scooter share program. The board heard about our growing acquisition of electric fleet and charging infrastructure. And so we'll be incorporating electric fleet into this facility. And then also going in line with our goal to build all our facilities in a more sustainable manner, we're going to be incorporating a lot of the green building design principles, such as solar panels or green roofs or reclaimed water and other principles that would enhance the sustainability elements of this project. Next slide, please. So the total project cost is between $20 and $24 million. As you can see from this chart here, bulk of the funding, we're seeking funds from federal grants. We've also recently received funding from Florida Department of Transportation for $2.3 million. And we're actively working with the city of Clearwater, as Commissioner Albritton knows, on the land for this facility, and working with the city staff on advancing the design for this facility. Next slide. So right now, this is what we're showing as the current schedule, a very high-level schedule. We would start planning and preliminary engineering, assuming the board approves this contract. And then we will start final design in summer of next year, followed by construction in 2023. And then we will be in operation in about fall of 2024. Next slide. So pretty early in the process, but we are happy to finally begin this project in full earnest, and look forward to working with the community and different stakeholders. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Al Burns, who can describe the evaluation process for selecting the firm. Al?
Good morning again, Madam Chair. Al Burns, your still highly motivated procurement director. I'd like to go over the procurement process for this solicitation. In late November, we issued an RFQ, which stands for Request for Qualifications. With the RFQ, you have to be in compliance with the CCNA procurement method mandated by the state of Florida, which this procurement was in compliance with. We posted the procurement or the solicitation on our website and on DemandStar, and we received 4 proposals. Great response to the solicitation. We received proposals from Associated Space Design, ASD Sky, Smith, Wendell Architectures, PC, and WSP USA. In your packet, it shows you the evaluation criteria that the proposals were evaluated against. Abhishek, he's good about involving our community partners, and with this solicitation, it was no different. We brought in community partners from the city of Clearwater, Pinellas County, and they did an excellent job along with PSTA staff, and they did an excellent job in evaluating the proposals. We brought in WSP and CDM Smith to give us presentations. And after the presentations, we then moved into negotiations with CDM Smith. Madam Chair, I also serve as a DBELO, which is responsible for the small and minority business participation. And CDM Smith has committed to a 13.63 DBE commitment. Commissioner Flowers, I heard your comment, and they are in relevant disciplines: engineering, traffic control, just to name a few. I think they have over 6 DBE subcontractors, all with significant roles in the contract. We ended negotiations, and the pricing or the rates that were offered by CDM Smith after negotiations are in line with FDOT rates, therefore making those rates submitted fair and reasonable. We also did a responsibility check on CDM Smith, checking their financials, the barge, suspension, etc., and they are in good financial standing. With that, I would like to turn it back over to Abhishek.
Thank you, Al. Next slide, please. So this contract is a three-phased contract. The first phase is primarily planning and preliminary engineering. As we had discussed during the planning committee, we'll spend a lot of time working with city staff and stakeholders to really make sure that this facility is in compliance with the city's plan and vision, long-term vision for the area. Phase 2 is the final design or engineering work. And then phase 3 will be designer support during the construction phase of this facility. And we'll be issuing a notice to proceed for every single phase as we move from planning into construction. Next slide. So the recommendation to the board is to award the Clearwater Multimodal Facility Preliminary Engineering and Final Design Services contract to CDM Smith for a not to exceed amount of $2.3 million. Madam Chair, I will also add that this item was discussed at the Planning Committee and was unanimously approved. I also have some members from CDM Smith. If we can highlight them on the screen, Mr. Bob Ham and Ben Harbour. And with that, we are happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Bennett.
I'll make a recommendation that we award the Clearwater Engineering and Final Design Services contract to CDM Smith.
Second.
Okay. Do we have anybody in the lobby who would like to comment?
There are no public comments.
Okay, thank you. Anybody on the board? All right, please open the voting system then. Okay, motion, we're missing one? Okay, motion carries 15-0, thank you. Next issue is the CEO evaluation. The finance, it's a two-part item. First part will be to consider a 4% adjustment to our CEO using our current compensation process. And then the second part will be to look at a new and improved compensation process for all employees for the future. First, the Personnel Committee met last week and reviewed the CEO evaluation for last year, and I want to thank the returning board members for filling those out and remind people that we are moving that process to the fall so that it makes more sense, so we don't have brand new people coming on and trying to evaluate the CEO. The process we've been using to adjust the CEO salary is based on a combination of successful performance and an effort to responsibly get his compensation to be more on par with his peers here in Tampa Bay and across the country. As you can see in the documents included in your packet, Brad's salary is still considerably below others that lead similar organizations, and we will be addressing that along with everybody else in the organization as we go forward. For these reasons, and a very successful year for PSTA, and to make progress towards a more market-appropriate salary level, the Personnel Committee has recommended a 4% adjustment to Brad's salary as shown in your packet. The committee also confirmed with PSTA Finance Officer Debbie Leos that this adjustment is accounted for in the current PSTA budget. So we need to take action on that. Well, we need to have a motion and a second on that, and then talk about the rest of the compensation process.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Let's see, Commissioner Schulman. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Sareki, did you have anything else? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to share, at the Personnel Committee meeting, I was the no vote on increasing Brad's salary to 4%. Not because I don't feel that his salary deserves to move closer to a market rate, but we are budgeted. So the initial recommendation was 3%. We were budgeted for 3.5%. And no other administrative employee here at PSTA received more than 3.5%. In fact, a majority, I think something like 65% or so, of administrative employees received 3% raise. So I felt that given the fact that we're going to have a new process moving forward that's going to take part at the end of this year to address concerns for all administrative employees, moving them closer to a market rate, that it was more appropriate to stay with a 3 or 3.5%, which was budgeted, and then readdress that as the secondary issue.
Thank you, and I think I disappeared somebody else who wanted to speak. I hate this system. No? Okay. Okay, does anybody else have any comments, questions? All right, well, let's open the voting system then. Oh, I'm sorry. Do we have public comment?
No public comment.
Okay.
I was intuiting. Okay. Okay, we have our voting system. And 2 more. Okay, who's missing?
I have another meeting to go to. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, okay. So motion carries 12-2.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and the next issue is, Brad's going to explain, I think, or somebody is, about the new compensation process.
Yeah, so I'm going to invite our Director of Human Resources, Trish Collins, to present what the Personnel Committee is recommending. Again, as the chair recommended, we're proposing to change the system that we've been doing and that you just basically voted through, thank you very much, to a new system that will go into effect in the next budget year, effective October 1st. So Trish, why don't you explain it?
Perfect, thank you. Good morning, Madam Chair and board members. I'm Trish Collins, the Director of Human Resources. Next slide, please. As Brad said, we are bringing to the board today a proposal to update how we handle annual pay adjustments for all of our administrative employees, including our CEO. And when we say administrative employees, we're speaking about the employees who are not covered by our union labor contracts. So this change we're proposing would make us more consistent with a number of cities in Pinellas County, the way they handle their city manager compensation, as well as the county manager here in Pinellas and the city of St. Petersburg as well. We also like this new model because it establishes a formal structure for us to ensure that our wages stay competitive and equitable, while continuing to reward and incentivize the high performance among our employees. Our proposed model separates our annual pay adjustments into 2 separate buckets, as you see here on the screen, a yellow market equity bucket and a red merit or outstanding achievement bucket. Within the yellow bucket, we have 2 components that are designed to keep our salaries competitive compared to market pay for comparable positions. One piece of this is an annual budget adjustment that would be across the board for all of our administrative employees who are performing at a satisfactory level. This would be approved by the board, and it would automatically go to every administrative employee whose manager determines that they are performing satisfactorily. This may typically be in the 3% range, but based on board approval, it could be different depending on our budget needs from year to year. The second type of adjustment in the yellow bucket is a market adjustment based on compensation surveys, which we perform every 4 to 5 years. This adjustment would gradually close the gap that we recognize exists for positions that have fallen behind a competitive market salary. These yellow bucket components would be effective each October 1st. And again, the board would review and approve these amounts along with the rest of the budget every fall. The second part of this proposed model is a separate and smaller amount, that's the red bucket, designed to reward our best performers with additional merit pay. The red bucket adjustment will be structured in the way that our performance reviews are now, based on high performance using our performance counts scorecard system that's in place. As you know, the performance count scorecard sets the high level goals approved by the board that are the most important for PSTA to achieve. They're actually visible and represented on the back wall of the boardroom that you're sitting in now. Those high level goals are driven down through the departments and then to each employee who sets goals and is scored on those goals at the end of the year to support the overall achievement of our important strategic areas. So those employees who score 100 or above on their individual goals would qualify for this red bucket annual merit pay. So we're really looking to reward our highest performers with this additional amount. In 2020 and looking over the last couple of years, we've seen approximately 15 to 20% of our 98 administrative employees achieve this level of performance. This red bucket adjustment would be effective every January 1st, and that allows us sufficient time following the end of the fiscal year to calculate the scorecard results that it's dependent on. So two aspects of our performance, two aspects of our compensation system, market and equity in October 1st, and merit and outstanding achievement based on the scorecard effective January 1st. Next slide, please. This model treats all of our employees the same, including our CEO, and again, achieves important goals for us with our compensation. It allows us to continue to provide competitive market-based pay for our employees, and it rewards top performance. Just as a note, there would not be any compensation adjustment for employees who are not performing satisfactorily, not even the market rate adjustment. That would be determined with their manager. And additionally, brand new employees who were just hired within the previous quarter would not receive an adjustment. Next slide, please. What I'd like to then share with you last is the schedule for this proposed model. The funding allocated to these buckets will come to the board every fall along with the rest of the budget. The board will have an opportunity to review and approve the amounts that are being allocated for compensation adjustments. You will also be asked during your fall budget hearings to confirm whether the CEO's performance is satisfactory, and if so, to confirm the market adjustment to his salary. And that will be the same process that we use with all of our administrative employees throughout the rest of the organization. Then in October or early November, the board would complete a merit adjustment evaluation for the CEO. That's for the red bucket portion. And that would be similar to the process that you all just completed for his evaluation. At the December meeting, if the CEO's evaluation plus the organizational scorecard score is 100 or above, then the board would confirm the same merit adjustment for the CEO that the other eligible employees would get. And just like all other employees, if the overall score is less than 100, then the merit adjustment would not be given. So our ask today is for the board to approve this new pay adjustment compensation model for the CEO and for all of our administrative employees. And I'll yield at this time back to the chair for discussion.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board?
Move approval, Madam Chair.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion from Commissioner Long, second from Commissioner Driscoll. I knew that. Do we have any public comment? Sitting in the lobby. No.
There are no public comments.
Thank you. All right. Can you bring up our voting system then? One more.
Bennett is not here.
One more.
He had a meeting.
There you go.
Okay, motion carries 14-0. All right, let's see, reports and correspondence. Brad, what's new?
Thank you.
Commissioner, before you do that, since we only had 14 voting, can you let the people know who may be out in the lobby, who the 15th member wasn't?
Sorry, Commissioner Bennett had to leave for another meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Alan. So in your packet is a presentation that the Planning Committee of PSTA received that the City Council of St. Petersburg also received about the transit-oriented development planning efforts that are going on in a partnership between Ford Pinellas, the City of St. Petersburg, and PSTA staff around the Sunrunner Rapid Transit Project. We received a federal grant, actually 2 federal grants for TOD planning, which makes sense because the federal government is investing in infrastructure. They want it to be successful. And one of the benefits of investing in infrastructure is that it spurs on economic development. And of course, around transit investments, you can provide more walkable, more densely developed, fewer parking spaces, those kinds of things. That's transit-oriented development. And so this study, this work, is specifically working along at the Sunrunner stations, all along the corridor, to see what opportunities and what modifications might be necessary. And it was really well received by the St. Pete City Council. They're obviously going to be there where most of the stations are located, and they are already receiving developers. Developers are coming to the city and looking to take advantage of the Sunrunner stations and make new developments, and that's all going to come forward this summer. So that's in your packet. We'll have more information on that coming forward. Next month at your meeting, some of you who live south of here, who come up here on the highway, you might have noticed the new signs that are on I-275 that say buses on the shoulders of the highway. That's a Florida DOT project that is planning to launch this summer, probably in June as well, where PSTA buses would be able to use the shoulders. The crews are out there widening and hardening, making it so you can drive on the shoulders of I-275 between St. Petersburg and Gandy Boulevard. And we'll have a presentation about how that's going to work to the PSTA board next month. Also next month is we will have on the agenda to approve an interlocal agreement with the city of Dunedin for our next autonomous vehicle pilot. On your consent agenda today, you all approved an interlocal agreement extension with the city of St. Petersburg because we're able to extend the current St. Petersburg autonomous vehicle pilot for another month. It's been incredibly successful, very high ridership, and with the delay of the Grand Prix race in St. Pete, we were able to extend that. And that, I believe, is going to the city council, St. Pete City Council, for its approval on March 4th. So it'll be in St. Petersburg till March 28th. And then it'll move to Dunedin. Hopefully around the middle of April, it'll get going there. And then after that, it'll go to the city of Clearwater, specifically to Clearwater Beach. So it's very exciting that we're able to kind of pilot Ava and get lots of people to come out and try her out. It's pretty neat to ride in a driverless, in a vehicle without a steering wheel. It doesn't go very fast. But look forward to that next month. Finally, I'll just mention a couple things. Of course, as we all know, between the next thing on our agenda is the legislative session in Tallahassee, and that we're obviously closely monitoring that. Our legislative committee hosted a virtual Tallahassee day earlier this month, and I want to thank Commissioner Saraki and Commissioner Robinson and Commissioner Albritton for participating in all or part of that day. We had a great day of Zooms with all of the with the Pinellas delegation, with all of the senators and many of the representatives. And we're following up on those visits, because those went very well, with asking legislators for letters of support for some of our projects, following up on answering their questions, etc. And so that work has already gone underway, and of course the session starts, and we'll monitor our success in all those in those activities. I got to give a little shout out to a couple of my staff that you saw this morning. You saw Tamika White early on in the day, and Trish Collins just now, both in our HR department. Just got word that Trish has been nominated to be the vice chair of APTA's Labor and Employee Relations Committee, which is pretty awesome. That's the National Association.
Great.
And Tamika has been nominated to be the secretary of the Workforce Development Committee. So we've got hundreds of rock stars at PSTA, but those are just two of them that I'll mention today. With that, thank you very much.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have a future meeting subject I'd like to ask. Sorry, thank you, Vu. This last week, I was very fortunate to have a Zoom meeting with the interlocal government person here in the United States from Lilium. And I think you've all heard me speak of Lilium before. And I would very much like to, rather than me sharing what we talked about, I was hopeful that we might be able to get them on the agenda for our next board meeting to do a presentation to us about what they're all about, what the future of public transportation might look like in our Tampa Bay region, and how it might specifically impact a little bit of what we're doing here at PSTA, given that we are constantly talking about being mobility innovators. So hopefully I can give you that contact and you can make that happen.
Yes, I'm working on that.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair, I apologize, Cassandra just reminded me. I was supposed to mention that as we are asking our legislators for letters of support for our projects, we like to do the same thing if we can, and FDOT has asked us to write a letter of support for their application for federal funds to support the West Shore Interchange project. Those of you who know the West Shore Interchange, it's right on the other side of the Howard Franklin Bridge, that due to the state's financial losses during the pandemic, got taken out of the FDOT work program or moved way into the advance. And the region is very concerned about that and trying to get it going again, because the way it sits right today, the Howard Franklin Bridge is going to be widened, but the interchange won't be there, and so it's going to create another bottleneck. It also will create bottlenecks for transit too. It gets over to Tampa. And so I'm going to be writing that letter of support on behalf of PSTA that we support their application, just like they support our applications. In that respect, I just wanted to highlight that.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other business we need to discuss? Commissioner Alberton, did you have something?
Yes, thank you. Talking about support letters, I had a really nice conversation yesterday with Representative Diamond, and he is going to send us a support letter for the Intermodal Center.
Oh, great.
And also include some other things. We did talk about other projects in transit, which he's very interested in, and he's going to support what we're looking at this year. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, great.
Great, thank you. Anything else? Okay, our next meeting is March 31st at 9 a.m. We'll see you there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I do think I do have a meeting with Lillian on my calendar.
What?
I think I have a meeting set with Lillian on my calendar, I think.
Great.
Yeah.
All right, well, we'll be talking tomorrow.
We will. Thank you for your